So yeah, get yourselves comfy, grab a pen, like I say, feel free to scribble down some notes and stuff yourself. I'm sure if you can lean against the little ledge and pads and whatnot if you've got anything with you. So, right, first of all, we're going to kick off with a nutritional session, and obviously, like I say, cover a few things that we should definitely be avoiding if we want to get in shape for summer, and potentially some foods to include in the diet as well. So, I mean, what's everyone's diet like at a whole? You know, what sort of things do people eat on a regular basis, and things they might enjoy eating? So, shout out a few ideas.
Fish.
So fish, what sort of things? Is it like fish and chip shop fish, or is it?
Sometimes fish and chips, yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'll grill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Was that like tuna fish steaks or?
Normally sole, haddock.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, nice mixture.
All the time. I do like the fish and chips.
Yeah. Well, once in a while, it's not the end of the world. It's just if people are going to the chip shop every night and they say, "Well, I want to lose weight and get in shape," you kind of got to look into. Hang on a minute, that's got to change to begin with. Yeah. So. Okay, well, what about everyone else? What are the things that people like to eat?
I'm gluten intolerant, so trying to eat gluten free. One thing I find it's very hard to be, it's like having to choose to eat gluten free products or healthy products. Like gluten free and more sugar in. Like I know a lot of cereals, I like them. Usually it's gluten free, so that's a benefit, but then it's got more sugar in than if it's just have toast. And, so that's one thing I
can be a bit of a minefield, you know. Obviously, for everything that we can look at, I know the gluten-free range has really grown alive in the last few years, which is good for people like yourself. Obviously, you know, for everything you've got, there's always variations. And, you know, if you like pasta, there'll be gluten-free pasta, or you can get different variations that have been made using different types of flour. And that's something I'd recommend. You know, you can still have things like I make pancakes quite a lot myself, but instead of using wheat flour, I tend to use buckwheat flour or coconut flour. So straight away, it's gluten-free and it's a lot more beneficial for you as well. So it goes to show if you're a bit creative with the things, look on the internet. There's so many resources these days. So, how about yourself, Carolyn and Lorna?
The last 12 months have been shocking. That's why I'm here. So
yeah, you did mention that.
Take away, microwave meals.
Oh.
It used to be
not
really
the microwave
good.
meals.
It used to be really good, but the last 6 months especially, just crap.
Okay.
So I need to kick up the bum.
Yeah, not a problem.
So I did try some of your lentil and bean recipes, but it was just that getting used to it and changing my mindset into shopping, and it was like, oh, so thanks.
Yeah. Well, the quick, easy fixes sometimes. If people aren't prepared when it comes to the food, you know, people might say, right, I haven't got anything in, what's in the fridge? Okay, there you go. There's a microwave meal in the freezer, or I've got chip shop around the corner and stuff like that. So, you know, for people that are trying to get the results, try and plan ahead. You know, I always encourage my clients and people to say, well, twice a week, you know, ideally try and get 2 small shops in if you can. It's not always feasible, in which case the home shopping or getting out and doing one big shop each week is, you know, sometimes more practical for a lot of people. But when it comes to planning for food, simple things like, okay, if I make a batch of something, so you mentioned you had chili today, wasn't it? Chili con carne, so I might say, right, I grilled up some mince, you know, I made a basic dish. To make a chili, I'd add some chilies and tomato and stuff like that, but I could keep the basic beef to one side and then make different dishes off the back end of that. So you've got the kind of base, if you like. You might say, well, I'm going to make a bolognese out of it, I might do something else, maybe put a cottage pie together or something like that. So using the same basic ingredients, you can then create 2 or 3 meals throughout the week, and whatever you don't eat, you can potentially freeze. So instead of going, right, I've got a microwave meal, it's a home-cooked meal that you're going to reheat, which again will be a lot healthier for yourself. So, right, how about yourself, Lorna?
I eat anything.
Generally, I'm quite good, aren't I, really? I mean, we work in healthcare and shifts, so anywhere, you know, there's like chocolates and cakes and things, and we do have to avoid them. At home, I'm really good because I'll make every night I make a cooked meal for my husband. And generally lunches are alright, but it's the time and if you're tired and what you fancy, so it depends from week to week. So sometimes I'm really determined, you know, and just know what I'm eating and know what I should be eating, what I shouldn't. And then one week we'll just completely go by the wayside and preparations, everything. Like this, I didn't do my lunch for today, so I went to Subway for lunch. But because I didn't prepare. But yeah, I like to eat everything.
Brilliant. How about yourself, Amanda?
We have a lot of chicken actually.
Okay, good.
I've got
got 2 teenagers, so it seems to revolve around them as well. You know, just trying to
Yeah.
get something that the 4 of us will eat. So they like the roast chicken, or I'll do a casserole. Like I like to use a slow cooker.
Oh,
But
nice.
at weekends, like to do, like tomorrow, doing chilli, and I'll double up and freeze half.
Yeah.
Or bolognese, but you know, like curries. So Saturday possibly I'll do a curry.
Brilliant.
So things like that.
Yeah, fantastic. That sounds good. It's good to get an idea of what people are enjoying eating off the cuff. You know, for a lot of people, they tend to find it's the same things: either time, you know, convenience if you're not prepared, and you know, chip shops open, something around the corner, supermarkets down the road, quick, I'll nip out and get something. But normally, I find for people, sweet tooths and the kind of refined products normally tend to be the worst ones that people are eating that they can make themselves from scratch and make them a lot healthier. So, I mean, sugar, artificial sweeteners are 2 of the biggest things that we look to decrease in the diet, which is the first thing I put on my foods to avoid. So, I mean, sugar comes in various forms. You'll find it hidden in pre-packaged foods, you find it in microwave meals, you'll find it in all sorts of savoury things you wouldn't think it's actually in. When it comes to low-fat products as well, or slimmers type products, if you look down the list of ingredients, sometimes it'll say it's fat-free, spin it over and you'll find it's got artificial sweeteners in it, or it's got a very high sugar content because it's low in calories, etc. So looking out on the labels, you know, just being a bit savvy about what you're eating and trying to steer clear of the stuff that's loaded up with it. Quick tip, they generally list things in greatest quantity first. So if you're looking on a food label and it says sugar, you want to say, oh, hang on a minute, put that one down, we're going to have something that hasn't got sugar near the first couple of ingredients, because that's quite a high percentage of the actual food. So, is anyone familiar with artificial sweeteners? Does anyone tend to use them in replacement of sugar or seek them out? No? Okay.
Well, what was I doing? I did, before I was getting married, I did the 5-2 diet for 4 weeks.
Oh, brilliant.
So that was, it promotes, you know, cooking things from scratch and making sure everything's fresh, but then it's based on the counting the calories as well.
Counting,
so
yeah.
if you picked up a ready meal, then if you haven't prepared and you haven't got everything from scratch, you know how many calories, it's easy to count, and that was that. So during my time doing that, 4 weeks, I heard about an artificial sweetener that was, is it called stevia?
Stevia.
Yeah, that was more natural, but is it just as harmful? That's what I just didn't know about that. I bought it and then I gave it to a friend.
Oh, okay.
And it was very sweet.
Yes.
Very, very sweet.
So with changing sugar for sweeteners, generally you'll find that the overall sweetness is a lot higher, therefore you require less. So on that point of view, it can be a good thing. Stevia, something that's grown in popularity quite recently, it is more natural, but when you look at sugar, sugar comes from sugarcane anyway, which is something that they do tend to have in India, as an example. Some of the healthier forms of sweetener, obviously natural honey, if you can get a good quality honey, you know, it comes straight from the bees, hasn't been tampered with, that's always a good one to have. Stevia, if you can get a good quality one, yes, use it. Quite often you'll find they've got bulking or caking agents or fillers added in as well. So if you look down a list of ingredients, it will only have a small percentage of the actual product you want, and then chuck a load of other stuff in just to create a pot or to create the product that you're buying. So that's something to look out for, be aware of. But if you get a good quality stevia, yes, use it, definitely. There's something called jaggery, which is something they use quite a lot in India, which is an unrefined version of sugar. So it's like brown sugar, but it hasn't been treated through chemical processing or anything. So if you get your hands on that, again, I'd recommend having a go on some of that. Or if you're looking to decrease your sweet tooth, if you're making cakes and stuff like that require the sweetness instead of, you know, putting something in a drink, dates, dried fruits, raisins, stuff like that, or bananas, things like that can add natural sweetness to your dishes when you're preparing them. So there's a couple of tips for you there. Any questions on that side of things? No? Cool, right, we'll crack on then. So next up on the list, obviously we've kind of covered pre-packaged foods. You've got imitation foods, fake foods. So things they put into packets aren't always as they seem. So by that I mean, you look at the label and it says, okay, it's one thing, or it's a replication of something. So as an example, reformed meat. Is anyone familiar with reformed products? Yeah, got a couple of nods, a couple of unsures. Okay, just so everyone's clear on it, reformed meat basically is anything that they've got to the end of the carcass and thought, well, there's still a bit on there, we'll kind of jet wash it, scrape out the other bits, and it generally tends to be connective tissue, cartilaginous stuff, and all the nice stuff that's stuck to the bone they can't cut off basically. They turn it into a bit of a slurry, put some chemicals in it and stick it back into some sort of shape. So Things that you'll commonly find, yeah, doesn't sound the most appealing. You want to see the processing videos, it'll really put you off of it. But generally stuff like deli meats, hams, stuff like that, chicken nuggets, things like that, the lower quality food products is where we tend to find it. So McDonald's, Subway, things like that, they've literally just brought in the kind of reform stuff and say, right, you know, we'll pass it off. They generally pass it off as, you know, healthy or contains 100% chicken, but what is 100% chicken? As I've said, it can be connective tissue, it can be the skin, bits and bobs like that. So, yeah, not particularly nice, but it goes to show you what kind of is regulation allowable in this country. So, I'll try and steer clear of that sort of stuff because generally it has a lot of preservatives and chemicals added in to kind of compress it and stick it together so it doesn't fall apart. That kind of covers that. It ties in nicely with the deli meats, as I've mentioned already, nitrates, nitrites, sugar, salt, water and chemical preservatives, things you generally find in the fake foods and the deli meats counter as well. So, is anyone familiar with Billy the Bear?
Oh, man.
I used to eat that, yeah, awful.
I looked at it, I come across it a few years ago, I looked at it and just thought, that just looks
Ban them now, but have it if they could though. Oh, just the look of it, you can just tell it's really bad.
Yeah. You can tell it's not going to be good for you.
No.
But they dress it up for kids, and the kids are the ones that are going to nag the parents, go, I want Billy Bear, I want Billy Bear. And, you know, the kids don't know no different, but at the end of the day, do you really want to be giving stuff like that to your kids? Chances are probably not.
Reform stuff's always cheaper as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot cheaper.
So, prices
buy
is
it
one
because
thing.
we watched a programme once and then my husband's like, we said that we wouldn't buy reform meat, so if I'm buying any sandwich meat that cost me, I'd probably spend like £10 for 2 days, something daft like that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But then when you weigh it up to the cost of Subway, if you go to Subway, you're looking at three or four things. I'm just saying, if you make it yourself, you know what's gone into it, you go to Subway, you're not too sure, and you know, at least then you've got that kind of control a little bit.
Yeah.
Even better still, you know, if you going back to being organised, if you roast a chicken on a Sunday, you can carve that up yourself, or carve up a turkey, roast beef, etc. And that way you can get some sandwiches and some more usage out of it further on into the week as well. So, I mean, the main reasons they add the preservatives in is obviously look, flavour, taste, smell, etc. And obviously keeping it on the shelf for a lot longer tends to be the biggest selling point. So, ties in with the next thing, refined carbohydrates. So obviously it wouldn't necessarily affect yourself so much, Rachel, if you're gluten intolerant or you're avoiding gluten, but there's a lot of products you'll find in the breads and kind of long life storage section. Sometimes the use by dates are 2 years, 3 years down the line. You look at it thinking, you don't really want to be eating that if it's been sat around for that amount of time. You don't always know when it's been produced either, for it to already have reached the shelf. So refined products, you know, the cakes, the biscuits, stuff like that, they tend to put, they're getting better on it, but trans fats, is anyone familiar with trans fats? Trans fat, okay, hydrogenated vegetable oil or partially hydrogenated vegetable oils?
Heard of them, but don't really
Okay.
understand them.
Basically, cut a long story short, they found a way that they could get vegetable oil, hydrogenate it, turn it into a thicker, more condensed lardy type substance, which then extends the shelf life of products, and it's very, very cheap. So that's one of the main reasons it ventures into these kind of cakey, biscuity, bready type things that then can sit on the shelf for years. When your body ingests it, it can't process it. So it's one of the worst fats, one of the worst products essentially to put into your body, and it's one of the things that can cause a numerous amount of diseases. So I definitely steer clear of that one with a barge pole. If you come across anything that says partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated vegetable oil, don't put it in your body. It's one of the worst things for you. Just lastly, the last thing I want to touch on is tinned or canned produce. So is that something that people tend to use quite regularly?
That's my job, yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So obviously with your job it might be a little bit unavoidable at times. Is anyone else having it on a regular basis?
It's natural because I use a lot of tinned tomatoes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And high
Beans.
Tuna, yeah.
Cool.
Beans.
Certain things not too bad, but what they tend to do, because they used to make the tins out of actual tin, the metal, but then they were finding that the metal would seep into whatever was in the tin. So therefore you'd end up with tuna that tasted like metal and it contained some of the actual metal itself. So what they started doing was putting a layer inside the cans, and what they tend to use is a plasticizer or BPA. Is anyone familiar with BPA? One nod? Okay, not too sure. Basically it's bisphenol A, it's a chemical they use to make plastic bottles, plastic products, and they line the cans with it. Tomatoes unfortunately are one of the worst ones because they they're quite acidic, and what happens then is the acid kind of erodes the inside of the can, not to the point where it's going to rust, but it means that this kind of plastic's able to seep into whatever's in the can. You can end up with quite high levels of plastic going into your body. So if you looked at the overall day-to-day life, you'd say, okay, well, I might drink out of plastic bottles, I might buy some things that are in plastic bags, I might heat up the occasional microwave meal. So there's a lot of exposure these days to plastics in the life. So when plastics get into your body, much like any toxins, the body doesn't always recognise it. And you think how many chemicals have been created over the last 100 years or so, since the world's become quite industrialised. And if you date that back to the last few thousand years, when there's only been, you know, kind of what's on the earth, what's in the Mars, what's been available for people to eat, and to see such a rapid change over the last 100 years, the body's now exposed to so many new chemicals that it's not familiar with, and it doesn't know what to do. So it's kind of like, well, we're getting bombarded left, right and centre, and rather than letting it wreak havoc with the internal organs, your body's natural defence is to kind of metabolise it into fat cells. And that's where people can hold on to excess weight and say, okay, well, you know, I've got a bit of fat there, I've got some fat there, and I can't get rid of it. And they try to do the dieting. Yes, they might lose a bit of weight through exercising and dieting alone, but if you're not looking into giving your body that helping hand and providing it with the right environment to detoxify safely, it's not going to be able to release the toxins from the body. So that's something to consider. If you can, you know, try and reduce tin produce. There are certain makes out there that do specify we don't use BPA. What they do use, who knows? I'm not too sure. But then, you know, you've got to look at it. Well, you replace one thing with something else. The BPA's had some research. They might be replacing it with something else that hasn't had any research. So, you know, I do encourage people. Right, okay, get some tomatoes, whack them in the blender yourself. You've got chopped tomatoes. You know, it might take a couple of minutes longer, but at least you know. Right, I haven't got the kind of plastic exposure to it. So.
What about the cardboard cartons? Have they still got the lining?
The Tetra Paks. Some of them do, some of them don't, because they've got like a kind of almost waxy residue sometimes. I find so. No, so I'd imagine most of them on the market are starting to get a bit wise to it these days, because the BPA in particular has had quite bad press over the last few years. So like I say, where possible, try and do it yourself. It's not the end of the world if you have a couple of cans here or there, but for people that are predominantly eating a lot of canned foods, it's something to look into in the grand scheme of trying to live a healthier life and obviously getting your body some better results potentially. So
Just going back to the tomatoes, firstly, question.
Yeah.
We'll go back, because I do use lots in tomatoes
Yeah.
in cooking. And there's quite a bit of a pricing. So if you buy Sainsbury's own or the
Yeah.
Napoli or whatever, you know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
quite. So would you say the Napoli? I know obviously they're probably a better quality. Well, I'd hope a better quality tomatoes. But do you think that'd be a difference in the tin then to the cheaper ones, or would they be exactly the same?
without looking into it myself, I couldn't tell you what one manufacturer uses to the other. Like I say, all I do know is over recent years, because of the press, they've got a bit of a bad rap. So people are like, okay, you know, consumers win at the end of the day. If people turn around and say, well, I'm not buying tin tomatoes because they're going to contaminate my food, supermarkets, Napoli, people are going to have to say, well, you know what, guys, no one's buying them. Let's change what's going on and repackage it, remarket it essentially. So, yeah, it's something to be aware of. This, believe me, when you delve into the world of food and start looking at food labels and stuff, it's a minefield in itself. I could spend hours talking about this, but we don't have that much time today, so we're going to move on quickly, unless anyone's got any other questions.
I have one.
Yeah, go on, far away.
Tap water.
Ooh.
Because I have this argument with my husband. I buy bottled water.
Okay.
Not to use in everything, but and then if we ran a bottle, I'm like, it's all right. It's tap water. It's fine. He's like, do you know what's in tap water? What? Is it bad? Is it all right?
Right. I'm going to try and be as brief as I can on this. Again, I could spend hours talking about this.
Yeah.
In the UK, they put fluoride into tap water, okay, which is one of the main things that people are trying to not drink it for. One part of the argument for fluoride, you've got the dentists and the people that have got the research saying it's good for your teeth, it's good for your bones, it's healthy for you. It's not, it's a neurotoxin. Okay, it's one of the most poisonous things you can put into your body, yet they're quite happily putting it into tap water. Does anyone know why they put that in tap water?
Was it to dampen people's...
There you go. Spot on money. You know, more than me, right. It originated in the Second World War. Basically, the Nazis were putting it into the concentration camp water to make people docile and complacent. So it does a good job of that. Yeah, does a good job of that. Like I say, unfortunately, they've managed to get it into tap water across the world. Some states in America, they banned it because they look at it and say, oh, it's not good for us, we don't want it in the water. as far as I know, in the UK, it's pretty much in every county. I don't know whether the regulation exists, so it's not, and some people it is. Other things to look for in tap water is basically it's treated, so it's chemically treated. You've got chlorine, again, which falls into the same category of fluoride. Fluoride, bromine, chloride, and iodine all fall into the same category in the periodic table of halogens. Basically, what that means is, yeah, they're all quite poisonous to the body in high doses and certain doses, but the thing to be aware of is thyroid health more than anything. So I know you two will be familiar with thyroids. Anyone else know what thyroid is? No? Okay. Basically, in your body, some of the things that regulate your hormones, which you'll be familiar with certain hormones on a monthly basis, you've got your thyroid, which basically regulates your metabolism. So if someone's thyroid isn't working properly, you've got hyperthyroidism, where it's high metabolism, they're burning weight off, they can't keep weight on. Generally, you'll find hypothyroidism, where people are gaining weight and they can't seem to shift it. If you've got kind of your lifestyle and your food intake isn't balanced, then that can affect your thyroid health. Fluoride and iodine are two of the main things to look at there. So somebody that's got hypothyroidism or hyper, and they're drinking a lot of tap water, they can aggravate their condition. That's something to be aware of. But yeah, I mean, generally I'd say if you can, get a water filter. That is an ideal thing to do. If you look at the price side of things, it's not always ideal. It's something I've been juggling with myself. Before I went away, like yourself, Norman, I was drinking a lot of bottled water, but then you've got the plastic exposure and the cost, and you're thinking, well, I'm chucking these plastic bottles away, no, it's not good for the environment. Recently, I've been out and invested in one of these. I've got them in Sainsbury's and Tesco's at the moment on offer. I think it was a tenner for the bottle. You get 4 filters, and there's a pack of filters for £9 or something. So I've got one for myself, I've got one for Sharon. This is our temporary fix. There is a water
Did you
filter.
just put tap water in that?
That's tap water.
And it filters.
And it'll filter out some of the stuff. You can't get, as far as I know, a bottle that will filter everything out. To get the ideal world solution would cost me probably about £300 or £400, which is an under sink water filtering unit. I haven't got that money to chuck at a water filter.
You're not always at home when you're drinking water, are you?
And there's that. So, yeah. Once I've got a bit of money, I probably will get one if I'm honest with you, but then I can then say, right, I'm going to fill up a 2 litre bottle when I'm out of the house, at least I know I've got some to hand. But some people will rate the reverse osmosis filters, that'll take care of your whole house. Again, that's an option, but you can look at paying a couple of grand for one of those sometimes. So, again, it depends on what people want to spend versus real world situations. So
should you be using like glass or metal drinking bottles
right.
rather than plastic?
I'd recommend you try and get a glass one if you can, or a safe plastic one that's not going to leak chemicals into your drink. Essentially, you can get a good quality metal one I used to have called a SIG bottle. I think about 10-15 quid if you look on eBay. They're pretty decent, they're quite lightweight as well. The trouble is I'm quite clumsy, I tend to drop stuff. I dropped it a few times, it dented it and it just looked rubbish. So got to be careful with that. You can get glass ones.
Is that plastic or glass, that filter?
That is hard quality plastic. It's a Brita filter. Like I say, there is a glass one I've got to try and track down what make it is, but I've seen people with a fancy glass one, it's got like a rubberised kind of case to it, so even if you do drop it, it looks like it might bounce. So I think that might be one that's up my street. Fingers crossed on the final. So, any other questions before we move on? No? Perfect. Right, so on to the next section. Where do toxins come from? So we've kind of established a little bit about food and environment where we can potentially get a bit of toxin exposure. Essentially, the more toxins that we're exposed to, the body's not going to know what to do. So they might give a safe guideline and saying, yeah, you can be exposed to this small amount of one thing, you can ingest another amount of one thing, but they don't necessarily consider what I call total load or toxic load. So does anyone have any ideas of where they might be exposed to toxins on a regular basis?
Like clean, I use a lot of bleach.
Perfect. Move my pen on. So what I'm going to do, Jan, I'm just going to scribble them down on the board behind you quickly so everyone can see. So is it fair to say cleaning products then?
Like hairsprays and things like that.
Hairspray or hairspray?
Hairspray.
Hairspray. So that fall into hair products. You have to excuse my writing, hopefully everyone can see it, it's pretty bad. So hair products and cleaning, yeah, 2 from yourself. How about you, Rachel?
Just the air environment.
So just breathing in from the air, yeah, perfect. That's good. Amanda, 1 from yourself.
I think I
So feel free to pitch in like this. Oh, sorry, Janet.
Alcohol.
Alcohol. There you go, that's a good one. How about yourself, Caroline? You got anything over there?
Makeup.
Makeup, yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Any others?
Tobacco smoke,
Yeah, tobacco, yeah, certainly valid. Cool. So I'm just going to fill in a couple more for you. So you can see a couple of the main areas there. So we've got to consider food, alcohol, I'm just going to put a slash to say alcohol / drinks. So not necessarily alcohol, but other things.
Energy drinks.
Yeah, energy drinks, tea, coffee, etc. is another valid one. So we've already covered environment. What we haven't covered though is people. Another one there. Oh, believe me.
I'm thinking Brittany, I've got in my head now. What's going on?
Brilliant. So by people, I don't mean people are going to be walking around wearing a hazmat suit or anything like that, but you might come across people, especially in your line of work, working in hospitals, obviously for yourself, customer facing, people are quite negative. I'm not too sure what you two do for work, but do you tend to encounter people that are negative or just complaining, whinging all the time?
Yeah, I work in an office. So.
Right, so that's kind of what I mean by the people side of things and the faults, because what can happen, you might be having the best day in the world, you encounter the customer that's just going on at you, or you've got somebody that's really, really ill and they're coughing, spluttering, generally they've got quite a low kind of vibration, they're quite negative, or you've got people in an office environment that just don't want to, they don't like their job, they're complaining, they hate their life. Sometimes that can have an impact on you as well. So you spend 10 minutes with that person, it feels like you've got 10 rounds of Mike Tyson, you think, I'm that good, I just want to go to bed, I've had enough, you know, what's going on? It's because people like that, basically, they tend to resonate at a lower frequency, so they're quite negative, they're going to be down here somewhere, whereas people that are doing exercise, taking care of themselves, and you know, just generally quite outgoing and quite happy, are going to be up here somewhere, they're kind of higher resonance levels. So, that can have a knock-on effect with your thoughts, and they all kind of tie in with each other. So let me explain. If we live in an environment, you know, so if we live in town, as an example in Manchester, chances are it might be a little bit more polluted than living out here in leafy suburbia of Altrincham, Wythenshawe kind of neck of the woods. You might come across more positive people in certain areas. If you encounter somebody positive, generally your thoughts might be a bit more positive, or if you get up in the morning, you're having a good day, your thoughts are going to be positive. If you got up, you've had road rage on the roads, you've had a horrible day, you've listened to the radio, you've the news, it's all doom and gloom, that might set the tone for the rest of the day. Your makeup products, quite rightly pointed out by somebody. I'm not an expert on makeup, obviously I don't use it myself, but certain products do contain heavy metals, different toxins and chemicals, and obviously people are splashing it all over themselves, spraying it left, right and centre, hairspray, things like that. People don't consider that the perfumes, the deodorants and the products can be inhaled. Obviously your lungs are quite extensive with how much air they're getting into the body, so if you're breathing stuff in on a regular basis, so people that work in hair salons and stuff like that, they're encountering a lot of kind of cleaning chemicals and products. They're going, well, hang on a minute, I can't seem to shift this fat. And they don't realise that their job isn't doing them any favours when it comes to that as well. Tobacco smoke, obviously that's quite toxic, as is alcohol. For drinks, things like tea, coffee, you know, unless you're getting organic products or of a good quality, you know, people are spraying the crops with all sorts of chemicals to keep the bugs away, to make the crops grow better, etc. Because at the end of the day, they want to try and make as much money as they can out of it. And the same goes for the food as well. So there's a few of the places that we can kind of get toxins being bombarded into our lifestyle. And as I've highlighted already, you know, if we try and look at as many of these as we can and be sensible, take precautions, and just do a bit of work on that, then ultimately we can really reduce the overall exposure throughout the week. And it's the small things that we do on a kind of day-to-day basis that ultimately have the biggest impact on your health, your fitness, as well as your kind of weight loss and fat loss goals. So, yeah, I mean, I've kind of given you a few ideas there. Like I say, this could be a whole workshop in itself going into that. And I have actually filmed a few bits for my upcoming programme online that covers a bit more of that. So, has anyone got any questions or anything else they'd like to add to the board of toxins? No? Hopefully I've given everyone a few ideas there. So, a couple of things to consider. So essentially, the more toxins we have in the body, the more weight we're going to store and the more fat we're going to store. So it can be a bit of a pain to shift. So if we're able to give the body what it needs in terms of lifestyle, nutrition and looking after yourself a bit, you're going to set the right environment. You might not be able to deal with the people too much, at the end of the day you can't choose your work colleagues unless you change job. If you're working with customers on a daily basis, you don't know who you're going to meet on a day-to-day basis, do you? The only thing you can do is work with what you've got and just deal with it as best as you can. So there is a quick tip there. If you want to try and repel people's bad energy, if you just imagine yourself in an energetic bubble, so if you've got your high resonance, you're having a great day, doesn't matter who you encounter, if you put yourself into that bubble, nothing's going to stick to you. So that's a quick tip for you. Alright, in terms of total stress loads, and when we think of stress, what does everyone think of? Just some ideas.
Just like you've just been talking
Yeah.
about, maybe having a bad day with
Yeah.
people and
Yeah, perfect, check it. So obviously when we're stressed out, what other things might stress people out? Where does people think they're going to get stressed from? Yeah, children, that's something about it, yeah.
GCSEs are
Yeah.
that stressful.
Yeah, so children, work, anything from you girls?
Just being life, is it?
Yeah, being busy in general,
Yeah.
being rushed
your health,
around.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Or
So,
family, if there's like a some perhaps in the family and you're concerned about somebody that's stressful, somebody's ill health.
Yeah. absolutely, yeah. So there's plenty of things that, as I was saying, if you look at the day-to-day life, people are subjected to so many different avenues and things that they can stress out about. At the end of the day, whether you choose to stress out about something or not, that choice lays with you. And sometimes people go, I can't get mad about that. Surely not. But it's how you react to a situation. So if the customer's really annoyed you, something works, come in, having a go at you, do you choose to react or just accept it and think, okay, I'm just going to deal with it, they're having a bad day, I'm not going to let it affect me. So that choice is yours. But when it comes to stress, you've got a couple of main hormones. I'm not going to delve into hormones too much, but cortisol, is that anything people have heard of? Yeah, okay. So it's known as the stress hormone. When it comes to losing body fat, if that's too high in the body, you can have disturbed sleep patterns as an example, your appetite can suffer. You might find that you're always tired, you wake up and you're just like, you know what, I've been asleep, I don't feel like I've been rested. Working shifts can have its impact on that as well, so you haven't got a kind of regular routine in place, or you're staying up late at night, getting up early in the morning. That can really affect it. People trying to fuel themselves with chocolate, sugar, caffeine, stuff like that as well. It can really wreak havoc internally. But if that's too high in the body, you've got the counter agent to that called human growth hormone. And when that's too low and cortisol's too high, you're not setting yourself up for a very successful balance of trying to lose body fat. Okay? So things that we can do to decrease cortisol, as I mentioned, we can look into the toxins and the overall stress, look to making more time for yourself and using your time wisely. So I know everyone's got to go to work, people might have other mouths to feed, stuff like that, but taking time out for yourself, doing something you enjoy, doing some yoga, getting out and having a walk, providing it's not chucking it down with rain, it is Manchester after all. Try and get some fresh air, walking barefoot on grass, simple things like that just allow you to kind of relax and de-stress. Some people like meditation, some people opt to have a nice bath, maybe some Epsom salts or some aromatherapy oils in it. And there's all things like that, as I say, day in, day out, if you make a bit of time for yourself, can have a bigger impact than saying, well, you know what, I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go crazy 5 times a week and hope I'll get results. If you're too stressed out, you're only going to further stress yourself out. Exercise is a form of stress on the body. So that's what sometimes people are going, I can't get my head around it. I work really hard in the gym, but, oh, blimey, bouncing all over the place, but I don't realise that if I'm stressed and I go and do really intense work 5 days a week, you're actually being counterproductive. It'd be much more productive to take some time out and say, you know what, I'm going to go and treat myself to a massage or go and do some yoga instead, or do something that's relaxing and give themselves a bit of time. Focus on your breathing exercises and pranayama. That would be a lot more effective until you're at the point where your stress is low enough to then go and do some exercise. So sometimes it's not the best thing to do, and that's coming from me. I'm all for exercise, but I'm telling you how it is. Right, in terms of eating strategies, we're going to move on to eating strategies now, which you'll notice is at the bottom of the first page. So, in terms of eating, we've already established what things people like to eat. Is anyone familiar? Somebody mentioned they've done intermittent fasting, the 5-2, and that was the calorie restriction one. Was it 500 calories a day, 2 times a week?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Has anyone else dabbled with a bit of intermittent fasting?
I've done that.
Oh, okay, fantastic.
High protein.
Yeah.
High protein diet.
So kind of like the Atkins type diet, high protein,
Not
low
as harsh
carbs.
as that, but yeah.
Okay. Cool. And how did everyone find these kind of dietary
I
adjustments?
thought
If you...
5 to 2 was quite easy actually.
Mm.
But it kind of difficult.
I think the first week I found difficult, and it was a lot about mindset. But I was very cold on my fast days, freezing.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd need like 2 cardigans because of
Oh,
that.
no.
So your body responds differently. But for the 4 weeks, and because I had my wedding as a goal, it didn't faze me. That was 2 years ago. If I tried to do it now, my mindset, I don't have as much drive or anything. Do you know, I haven't got an end goal to it.
Yeah.
So I just
Yeah.
like think, well, leave it.
No, absolutely. Well, obviously, you know, on the basis of goals, something like a wedding, a summer holiday, generally the things that people are like, well, I've got something to focus on. If you're focused, you're more determined, and it's easier to say, you know what, Alan, I might eat those biscuits, but I've got a beach holiday coming up, so I'm not going to, or I'm going to go out and have that bottle of beer or whatever. But is it really worth it? Think of the implications. 5-2 diet's quite a good one, you know. Obviously, I'm not one for calorie counting myself. Works for some people. You know, I find it can get a little bit too much going on. If you're sensible with your foods, you know, 1 calorie is not going to be the same as the other. So I've come across people that have done the 5-2 and said, you know what, Alan, I've starved myself all day and I've gone to the chip shop and had 500 calories worth of fish and chips.
Yeah.
Oh.
Doesn't really work like that, you know. You're better off saying, I'm going to eat some fruit and veg throughout the day. So you've got low calorie foods, you're still eating 500 calories, but you don't feel like you're starving. Naturally, when you don't eat or you eat less, it is normal to, you know, if you're not used to it, to feel cold. People might feel at first they've got a bit of a headache or they feel a little bit lethargic. But once you get into it and get a bit more used to it, you can get some really good results, and your energy levels are generally higher than they would be. You know, the digestive system is the energy system that requires the most energy in the body. The system that requires the most energy. So you think about it, if you're eating all day long, your body's working quite hard to digest the food. The energy's going there as opposed to elsewhere. So people that, you know, I'll give the example of a Sunday lunch or Christmas dinner. If people have eaten loads, they're out here somewhere and they go, oh, you know what, I want to go to sleep. It's because the body's working so hard and all the energy's going here, they haven't got any energy to do anything else. So eating regular meals, skipping meals, eating less overall. I recommend eating to 80%, okay? For those of you that have worked with me before, you might have heard me raving on about it. But if you eat to only 80%, you're never truly full, in which case you shouldn't get to the point where you're like, you know what, I feel like I need to undo that top button on the jeans or anything like that. So your body doesn't have to work as hard then. And if you find, you know, okay, I don't feel like I was genuinely full up, sometimes it can be a bit of a mindset thing, because the portion's gone from that to that. Your body's going, oh, I'm used to eating that, you know, what's going on there? So having a glass of water, as an example, just before you eat, so 10 minutes before, get a glass of water down you. Sometimes people can find, right, I'm thirsty, but I'm going to eat, because your body's telling you there's something not quite right here. A lot of food does contain water. So you might say, well, I'm going to eat something because your body's thirsty, or there's an emotional attachment to it. So somebody's sitting around at work, oh, I'm bored, or I'm stressed out, oh, there's some biscuits, I'm just going to have a few of them. Oh, a couple of hours later, oh, somebody else has got some chocolate, things like that. You know, the emotional attachment to food is something that needs to be broken, and it can be corrected. It's quite easy to do, it just requires a bit of discipline. Okay? So, intermittent fasting, you know, the 5-2 diet, etc., things like that can work. Partial fast, skipping a meal, saying, well, you know what, I'm going to skip dinner tonight, I'm going to eat a good breakfast in the morning, that can work. Especially for those of you that might be tending to eat quite late at night, so if you finish work late, you think, right, you know what, it's 11 o'clock, I'm still going to make dinner. It's not the best idea always. I've been guilty of it myself millions of times. You know, I work in the industry where I generally work most nights anyway, so you've got to look at it and say, well, do I really want to do that? My body should be resting overnight. If your body's not resting overnight properly, that's when you're going to wake up and think, okay, do I feel rested? You might feel your stomach's like, okay, you know, I feel a bit sick or don't feel hungry in the morning sometimes. And that's because it's still trying to digest last night's dinner. You've eaten at 11 o'clock at night. So sometimes it is better just to, you know, skip the meal and say, you know what, I'll just wait until the morning. It's not the end of the world. There's people that starve all around the world that don't eat anything for days. You know, skipping one meal is not going to be the end of the world, essentially. So that's one of the things I would recommend. And eating within a window. So it's not always practical, but where you can, you try it out, experiment for yourself. Eating within an 8 or 9 hour window and saying, well, I'm not going to eat anything outside of that, gives your body 14 or 16 hours where you're resting. So it's giving the body a chance to kind of work through some good digestive processes and give it a bit of a boost from its own natural energy supplies rather than bombarding it with more food. So
does that not slow your metabolism down?
Just
Which
question,
then
because
means
they
when
say,
you start eating as
they always
normal.
say have a breakfast, don't they?
Yeah, that's the
Metabolism.
thing I've always kind of thought.
depends what your mindset is.
I know what you're at.
Okay, well I'll come on to that. I do think, there you go. So we covered a little bit about healthy eating. Are my thoughts, feelings and emotions important? Yes, they are. Because whatever you think about, you believe. And what you believe is your reality. So as an example, if you've read somewhere and it says, if you skip a meal in the morning, then you're going to get weight, it's going to add weight, you're going to get fat. Well, you then read it, it's from somebody that you might, oh, okay, I'm really enjoying this book, so I'm going to believe that. Well, if you believe it, that is your truth. If you think, no, you know what, Alan, I believe that if I skip a meal in the morning, that's going to help me on my weight loss efforts and it's going to boost my energy. Might do it once or twice a week to begin with, then that becomes your new truth and you believe that. Therefore, your body and your reality is going to shape around it. So, some people will say one thing, some people say something else. At the end of the day, it's down to you to draw your own conclusions. But me personally, as well as a lot of people I work with, have had great results from the intermittent fasting, either doing 2 days a week, 3 days a week where there's less calories, or a high protein day once or twice a week. There's plenty of things you can get into, carb cycling, backloading carbs post-training. It's a minefield at the best of times, you know. What works for one person won't always work for someone else. Which is why when the popular diets come about, and someone's got the Atkins diet, the South Beach diet, the Beyonce diet, yeah, it might work for that one person, or it might work for one of your friends, they get great results. You try it and go, you know what, I followed it to the T, but I've gained weight, or I feel rubbish, I've got no energy, I feel cold. Everyone's individual when it comes to nutrition, you know, and that's something to consider. That's why I always say, eat correctly for your own body type. Don't pick up the latest copy of the magazine and go, right, it says here, you know, J-Lo's eating this week, so I'm going to do the exact same thing, and it's going to give me a body like hers. It may not. You know, you're going to know your body's more precisely than I might. You know, as an example, Rachel, with your gluten avoidance, you know if you eat gluten, it's not going to agree with you potentially. So therefore, you've got to eat accordingly for your body type and take that into consideration. So, you know, that's the main thing to get out of that. If you're eating right for your body type, you're going to feel energised, your weight's going to be of a normal level, you know, and everyone's figures are different. Some people might carry more weight on the hips, some people might carry it more on the arms and the upper body. Genetically, everyone has a kind of predefined body shape. You can't do anything about that. You know, some people have got bigger legs, some people are taller, etc. What you can do is kind of eat accordingly, balance your lifestyle out, and your natural figure will kind of come through, and that's how you're meant to be, really. So, any questions there? No? Hopefully I haven't bombarded you with too much. Like I said, I did type the notes up, so you've got a bit of a reference there. Cool. So training strategies we're going to take care of downstairs. Seeing as we're talking about thoughts, feelings and emotions, we touched on it a little bit up there when we touched on the thought side of things. Is anyone familiar with affirmations or positive mental attitudes? You may be familiar with it yourself. Is that something we covered before? A little bit, okay.
A little bit.
A little bit, yeah. Cool, okay. So basically, as I touched on, your thoughts create your reality, your beliefs. You're the only one that can choose what thoughts you have, what your beliefs are, and ultimately how that's going to affect you, i.e. your actions. If you get all three of those to align nicely, then essentially you might have a goal. So going back to your wedding, you know, you've got a wedding, right, I've got 6 weeks to my wedding, I want to get some good results for that. Instead of saying I want or I need to get results, if we rephrase it to say I am or I have, so as an example, I have achieved my dream body. I've given you some examples here. I have the body of my dreams, I have achieved my goal. So that might be I have achieved my goal of reaching a size 10 dress or whatnot, or I am sexy, confident, I'm in amazing shape, you know, I'm happy with my body. Things like that, if you rephrase what you're saying, it's going to have a big impact on what you believe, okay? And that's going to help get you the results a lot easier and potentially a lot quicker in most scenarios. So reconditioning your mind, saying, okay, I've got some negative thoughts, I'm thinking, oh no, you know, how am I going to fit into this bikini? How am I going to look good? People are going to think, who's this person on the beach, or who's this around the pool? That I'm going to be self-conscious of my arms and my stomach. if you really work on your mindset side of things and say, you know what, I don't care what other people think to begin with. They've got their own issues to deal with. You know, I'm here, I'm happy with my body. And using the affirmations on a regular basis, you might repeat an affirmation hundreds of times a day. Your diet and your lifestyle can change to accommodate that, but you won't even realise sometimes. You might say, okay, well, I've been doing the affirmation over and over and over. Oh, I know, I've eaten really well this week, or I've been to the gym 3 times. I didn't even realise. It's because you're reprogramming your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind is 95% of your thoughts and 95% of your reality. You don't always think you can control it, but it doesn't choose what it believes, what's real and what's not. So if you're telling it one thing, I've achieved my dream body, I am sexy, I am in shape, it's going to believe it sooner or later. If you write it on little post-it notes, if you've got it as memos on your phone, things like that. Small things that you do on a day-to-day basis have a big result. Okay? So it's a little bit about mindset for you. So I don't want to get too involved with that, but any questions on mindset? Cool, there you go. So we covered a bit about nutrition, we covered a bit about mindset, food, toxins, etc. Is there anything that anyone has questions about, or see a few people just kind of looking like, not too sure what's going on here? Is everyone in terms of the level we've spoken at? Obviously I'm aware that some people might know a little bit more, some people might know a little bit less, so I'm trying to cater for everyone today. So things to consider really as a takeaway. Like I say, you've got your notes there, feel free to pop your own notes in it. We're going to head downstairs and do the practical side of things in a minute. In terms of things that we can do, supplement-wise, we had a little bit of a chat before the rest of them got here, didn't we? So James is going to be offering a bit of a discount for the people who are showing up if they did want to buy some products at some point from him. Things that I always recommend, people don't generally get enough greens in their diet, okay? Greens and superfoods have come along a lot over the last few years as one of the kind of superfoods or supplements to go to. There's a vast array of them. You get different flavours, different brands, etc. The main things for the superfoods is they can help give your body a helping hand in terms of antioxidants as well as detoxification. So your liver, your kidneys, your lungs, sweating, stuff like that. Great ways to eliminate toxins from the body. If people don't generally eat enough fruit and veg to give themselves a bit of a helping hand. So for the convenience side of things, rather than reaching for a can of Coke or a cup of tea or stuff like that, you can say, well, I've got that powder, mix it into some water, drink that once or twice a day, and that can really give your body a bit of a boost in the right direction. So for people, I'd always recommend get your diet and your lifestyle sorted, but if you need that extra helping hand, the greens are a really good product that will come about. I'm not too sure which ones you've actually got here, James. Just want to give them a quick run through of what you got.
Yeah, so most of those are pretty similar, but they've got slightly different ingredients in there. So the energy one is probably our most popular one, and that one's got all organic, all raw ingredients in there, but it's got a blend there of things like wheatgrass, barleygrass, alfalfa, spinach, spirulina, chlorella, broccoli. It's got your fruits in there as well. It's got an antioxidant blend, as Alan was saying, of rose hips, maca, pineapple, carrot, acerola, acai, beetroot, raspberry. It's got a fibre blend in there as well, and also digestive enzymes helping your body then to absorb the products that are actually in there. The nice thing about this one is it's got matcha green tea and yerba mate, natural energy booster, so you can use it as a bit of a pre-workout if you wanted to, or something like that before the gym, so that one's quite a good one. And there's just slightly different blends, like the detox one. You've got the Orac one, which is the highest antioxidant blend, and then there's a raw cacao one, chocolate one, and ones that got added protein in as well. So yeah, it's quite nice products.
It is quite nice. I've tried the green one.
Yeah, some of
This
them,
one?
yeah, some of them can be a bit nasty tasting, but those ones are really actually quite nice.
Test the one, it's not testable, like try before you buy that massive thing. Is that what those little ones are?
Yeah, you've got single two and sachets,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I've had it first hand myself. I bought a big tub or something. Just think, oh yeah, the greens are really good, and it was like drinking pond water. So it's always good to try it before you buy. Like I say, they've come a long way. I think some of the earlier ones were just granulated pond water, but they're good sources of protein. They really give your body a good helping hand if your diet's not 100%. Even for the people that have a good diet, it's that extra boost. The government will give that very conservative estimate of a portion of 5 veg a day, fruit or veg. It should really be near a 10 for most people. They don't realise that. People go, I struggle to get 5, how am I ever going to eat 10? So something to consider that. Some of them really tick off one or two portions of your 5 a day, so perfect. Right, any questions before we head downstairs and go do some work? No? So I promised everyone a bit of a workout today, so I'm going to jump down there.